Subscribe for more. During my internship, I was so painfully afraid that I would merely grab coffee and make photocopies for other people. There was an old man by alone in the middle of our busy business lobby. He was the only one I had met who didn't follow the rules. It was evident that he was really angry. It was clear from his face that he was both confused and desperate. He stayed there waiting, but people kept walking by him without even noticing he was there. He was praying that someone would step in since he felt like he was moving at a snail's pace while everyone else seemed to be moving at a speeding pace. At first, I thought he was just trying to figure out how to reach where he was going. But when I looked more closely, I didn't see anything strange. No one but the man himself could understand what he was trying to say. He tried to grab someone's attention by raising his hand a little bit because his signals weren't what people usually do when they want help. It was bizarre and unusual the way he was moving his hands. There was nothing about the way he was moving his hands that was normal or familiar, and it was completely out of character for him. After that, I had a moment of deep and surprising insight. He didn't have the ability to hear as one of his gifts. It was hard to put into words, but there was something in that moment that made me want to help so much. I have never liked being the focus of attention. In fact, I have always been happy to stay in the background and not draw attention to myself. But this time, things didn't go as planned. I really felt like I couldn't just stand by and watch him be treated with such little respect. Without thinking about it, I stepped up to him. I didn't know if I was making the right choice or if I was just being stupid. But I had to give it a shot myself. I took a deep breath and, with all the courage I could find, asked, "Hello there, is there anything I can do to help you?" He was astonished and his eyes were wide open. In the blink of an eye, he changed how he acted and how he carried himself. He straightened his shoulders, which had been slumped over because he was upset, in an effort to improve his posture. As he smiled, I could see that he was feeling calm and at peace. People could understand what he was saying. Someone happened to see him. The man began to use sign language to talk by moving his hands quickly and with purpose. I couldn't catch every little thing, but I was able to keep up with what was going on well enough. Michael Hartwell, the current CEO of the company, was the child he had been looking for. He was looking forward to spending a few minutes with his kid in person, even though he didn't have an appointment to see him. At birth, he was given the name Robert Hartwell. I had no idea what my opinion on the issue should be. Michael Hartwell, the CEO, was the name that not only showed up in the building directory, but it was also the name that made everyone in the office look like they were working extra hours every time the doors opened. And there I was, an intern, trying to help the CEO's father get in touch with his son. I asked, paying special attention to how I signed the inquiry, "Is Mr. Hartwell your son?" Robert's pride was obvious in the way he scrawled yes with his hands. "But I don't want to be a bother. I just thought I might be able to stop by and see him while I'm in the area." I bent my head to show that I understood how he felt. Even though he looked out of place in the busy work environment, I could sense how much he wanted something. Even so, he wanted to bond with his son. Even though he was proud of his child, I could sense that they were still emotionally apart from each other. Robert felt more and more empty and unhappy because of Michael's success and the amount of work he put into it. The fact that the distance between them had been expanding over time only made this feeling worse. I typed the lines, "I will see what I can do," with my hands, and my fingers shook a little. This turned out to be bigger than I thought it would be. After the internship was over, I was still just an intern. I didn't have to take care of the CEO's family. I was given the job of making copies of documents and putting together materials for presentations. This, on the other hand, was a situation that I thought I had no choice but to deal with. I walked with Robert to the lobby's waiting area and made sure he was okay. I could make a phone call as soon as he got into his position. He seemed grateful, and his eyes looked softer because they were sleepy. I talked to Patricia, an executive assistant who acted like she had the power to make decisions. I tried my best to be calm while I relayed the incident again, trying to make it appear less out of place. I introduced myself to her by saying, "Hi, Patricia. I'm Catherine Walsh from the intern program. Mr. Robert Hartwell is here to see Michael Hartwell. He was hoping to meet with him. Is there any way we could set that up? The person on the other end of the phone line didn't say a word for a long time. Patricia was the one who answered, and her voice sounded very surprised. His father? The voice had asked. Let me check with Mr. Hartwell. Can you ask him to wait? I nodded to Robert as he sat there with his hands clasped in his lap. I replied back to him, of course, after I signed, letting him know that I was ready to start in a few minutes. I hung up the phone and walked back to Robert. We started to send each other more signals while we were still waiting. I learned about his life story, how he grew up, his love of architecture, and the buildings he designed and built. I learned more about Michael, Robert's son, than I did about anything else. Michael had always pushed himself to the maximum in order to be successful. He even had to be away from his family, but he did all of this to make Robert proud of him. While we were talking, I noticed that other people were staring over at us. Some people looked like they were absolutely interested, while others looked like they were nervous. It wasn't normal for someone to be signing in the middle of the foyer of the business. I could definitely see that Jessica, who was our main receptionist, was looking at us. She seemed confused and disgusted at the same time. I knew that she didn't like anything that slowed down the fast pace of work, but I also knew that it was my job to keep helping Robert no matter what. It seemed like every minute that passed would never end. Patricia called the individual who had called her back. Patricia had called her, and after waiting about 20 to 30 minutes, she chose to respond. She told Mr. Hartwell that he couldn't visit his father right then because he was busy with a series of meetings. He wouldn't be able to clear his schedule for another hour. Robert tried to hide how he felt from me, but I could see he was disappointed. Even though he had been patient, I could tell that he was getting bored of waiting. He decided not to cause any trouble, even though he signed his name. His autograph said, "Maybe I should come back at another time." At that very moment, I would not let him leave the place. "I promise you, you are not a bother," I said. "I can show you around the building if you'd like. It's a beautiful place. I'm sure you'd enjoy it." I said these words to reassure him that I was serious about the cause. There was a hint of excitement in his eyes. He wrote back and replied, "I would be interested in that. I haven't seen where Michael works." Before I even knew it, what should have been a normal day for a marketing intern transformed into something I could never have imagined. Robert Hartwell was shown around the place where his son worked for the following few hours. He liked going to the location where his son worked since he had never seen anything like it before. There were creative departments, marketing floors, and artwork hanging in the hallways. What I didn't expect was that Michael Hartwell, the company's president and CEO, had been watching us from the mezzanine level above. He was there for the whole incident and saw everything that happened from the time he got there till the time he departed. I was really confused by the way I made him feel welcome and the fact that I connected with his father. I didn't know what to make of them. Was his final impression of it a good one? Do you feel like you're getting angry? Or something else that is different? We went ahead with the experience before I could think about it anymore. Robert seemed to have completely forgotten how upset he had been since he was asking questions about how the company was set up, who was in charge, and how everything worked together. Even so, I couldn't shake the feeling that something important was happening. I had no idea what would happen because this was not a normal trip. Still, I knew that this was a moment I would never forget. I had just arrived to the conclusion that I was probably getting used to my new job when something completely unexpected happened. Michael Hartwell was at the edge of the mezzanine. It was there that I noticed how very focused he was on us. At that point, I felt like my heart had stopped beating. I didn't know what to do to stay away from him. Should I act like I didn't notice him, wave to him, or give him some form of signal? Even though he was sitting up straight, I could see that he was paying great attention to everything that was going on below. While still talking, Robert kept asking questions and pointing out other things in the office. His son was seeing him do that. The small things in the environment really moved him. When I moved him from one department to another, I translated conversations for him and highlighted the most important parts of the business. Michael and Robert were reminded of how far apart they had grown over time with each interaction. It was almost distressing to see how different Michael's calm authority was from Robert's kind questioning. I took another quick look at him, thinking that Michael had moved, but he was still standing there, watching us. His eyes showed a combination of emotions. They looked like they were both curious and maybe a little scared. It seems that he was not only judging me, but also thinking about how he feels about his father. The foyer was mostly silent, with only the low murmur of voices emanating from the office and the odd sound of footsteps echoing through the halls breaking the silence. Robert's level of involvement grew even more than it had been before. As soon as we got to the marketing department, something happened. He pointed to the walls, which were covered in the company's newest ads. All of these ads were full of life and excitement. Robert waved his hands in the air and said, "In the past, my job was to design buildings that would last for decades, if not longer. I never would have thought I would be so proud of a company that makes ads. But this is truly amazing. Michael has made something truly great." I could tell that he wanted something, even though his eyes were full of pride. His tower designs left their mark on skylines all across the world throughout his lifetime. But at that time, making a connection with his child was more important to him than anything else. Over the course of several years, Michael's relationship fell apart because he was too focused on his work. As we walked past the buildings, I couldn't help but look over at Michael. He didn't move from where he was standing for even a second. His eyes followed us as we moved, and I couldn't shake the strange feeling of worry that seemed to be in the air. He seemed to be just sitting about waiting for anything to happen or for me to make a mistake. He seemed to be biding his time. Even though I didn't like having him around, I knew I had to help Robert. I knew how important this event was to him at the time, but it wasn't time yet. By the time we finally got to the break room, Robert was in an even better mood. He spoke a lot of stories as he thought back on the stories from the past. He thought about the coffee shops he went to every day, the good times he had with his late wife, and how they would spend hours talking about anything from family to architecture. He used his hands to talk about the past, signing, "Back then, life was much simpler." He moved his hands slowly. Before Michael changed into the person he is now and the world got so busy. I could tell right away how Robert was feeling by the things he said out loud. His voice shook a little as he spoke, making it seem like the weight of every word he said was the secret he had been keeping for a long time. I then sent back the signature. I'm sure he treasures those memories. But I also think he's been so busy that he forgot how important family is. Robert nodded in agreement, and for a brief moment, his face softened. I could tell that his joy about getting back together with Michael was starting to evaporate again. The two hadn't been honest with each other about anything important in a long time. The only times they had talked to each other in that time were polite, short conversations. Even though I couldn't shake the impression that our conversations were missing something very important, we continued our tour of the building. Robert couldn't help but notice that the walls of the office where Michael worked seemed to be getting bigger and taller every time he glanced at it. This just made him feel more distant from his son. The most important thing is that he didn't know how to go over hurdles like this, even though he wanted to. It was around 2:30 in the afternoon. At the time, we were on our way back to the lobby. Even though Robert saw more of the company than I had meant for him to see, I didn't feel bad about the trip. He got to see the world that his child lived in, a world he had only heard about in passing and that looked to be very different from the life he had lived before. We could see Michael again as soon as we got to the lobby. He was staring at us while he waited for us to get to the mezzanine level. This time, I could tell how hard he was staring at me. He had been watching us for more than an hour at that point. He had seen everything that happened, from how Robert got to know the employees to how I helped them talk to each other and how Robert was treated with respect and dignity. He had been handed this kind of item very rarely, if ever, in this building. Robert didn't seem to notice that his little child was paying a lot of attention to him. He was lost in his own thoughts, but he was also thinking about things that had happened in the past. Then he turned his head and looked back at the lobby. He saw Michael standing there this time. The two males exchanged a look. Even though they didn't say anything, the look they gave each other conveyed a lot. Even though Michael's face didn't show any signs of his feelings, he walked in a different way. He walked down the stairs from the mezzanine slowly, never taking his eyes off his father. I was able to see Michael in a way that I had never seen him before that afternoon. He wasn't acting like a CEO or pretending to be one. The person who looked nothing like the boss, who was thought to be above reproach and wanted everyone in the room to pay close attention to him in every way possible. He looked like individual. It is possible that it could be damaged. I had no idea what would happen at that moment. Did any of the troubles we had come from the fact that his dad didn't like the vacation I took him on? Was it a problem for him if I crossed the line? Could there have been a different set of factors going on in that situation? At the bottom of the stairs, Michael stopped and looked up at his father for a minute. He walked up to Robert with his hands raised slightly, as if he were about to say something, which shocked me a lot. He stopped talking and started using sign language to talk to people. Michael's hand shook a little as he scribbled, "I'm sorry." He said, "I should have been there. I should have spent more time with you." Robert's eyes got bigger, and it was clear that he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Then something truly amazing happened. I couldn't help but cry as I saw his face light up with such a big, real smile. They had been looking forward to this moment with tremendous excitement. This is the link that hasn't been there for all these years. Michael was more confident this time when he signed his name than he had been in the past. "I've been so busy with my work and everything that comes with being the CEO that I haven't paid attention to what really matters. I haven't paid attention to you." There wasn't a single sound in the area where people were waiting. The staff started to congregate to watch this strange event, and the usual low hum of conversation slowly faded into the background. Robert stopped completely and couldn't move for a little time because of how suddenly his child was acting. He wasn't sure what the best thing to do in this case was, therefore he didn't know what to do. After that, he carefully moved both of his arms out in front of him, making the space between them bigger. The father and son finally got to see each other again. It had been so long that it felt like forever. Finally, they hugged each other. Michael's initial step toward the beginning of the embrace was to take a step forward. It looked like everyone in the room let out a collective sigh of relief at the same time. I would go so far as to say that what I just saw at that place was the most important thing I had ever seen there. People had been looking forward to this moment for a long time. Everyone was extremely shocked by the moment. After Michael and whatever it was he was holding went their separate ways, he looked at me. It looked like he had gotten rid of the severe look that had seemed to be a big part of who he was. Suddenly, his face looked softer. After he took a glimpse in my direction, he continued in a whisper, "Miss Walsh." His glance seemed to communicate a sensation of discovery and enthusiasm about the scenario. "Can I talk to you for a second?" I was so moved that my heart started to race. Was I locked in a position that was very hard for me? Is there anything else that needs to go with this? I had not followed the rules before. I wasn't doing what was expected of me for the job I had. In the end, my job was not much different from that of an intern. Even so, I wasn't scared because I was following Michael to his office. I didn't feel anxious at all. I had never felt like I had done something really important before. I had changed Michael's life for the better, and I had changed Robert's life for the better as well. We didn't say a word while we were in the elevator, but I felt like there was some kind of unspoken connection between the three of us. It was clear that something had changed. I figured Michael's workplace would be nice, and it was. But the vista and the office furniture didn't catch my eye. The man who was seated in the chair behind the desk was the one. Just a few hours earlier, this person had seemed like they were from a foreign place. But suddenly he seemed more real than he ever had before. Michael looked at me with a serious look on his face. "Miss Walsh," he continued, "I'm sorry. I've been so busy with work that I've forgotten the most important thing of all, my family." I was shocked. I didn't think this would happen. It was a shock to hear a CEO say things like that. They had everything but were missing out on what really matters in life. Michael said in a calm voice, "You reminded me of what is really important in life. Today you did something for me that I haven't been able to do for myself in years." At that moment, I realized that my small act of kindness, my decision to go beyond of my comfort zone to help a stranger, had done more than merely benefit Robert Hartwell. It started a chain of events that would change not just my life but also the lives of two guys who were looking for something that seemed so far away. They wanted to connect with others, understand them, and have the confidence to face the things that really mattered. Michael worked in a beautiful building with a sleek, modern design that gave him a great perspective of the city skyline. But as soon as we walked in, the room seemed to get a lot smaller. The walls, glass, and polished furniture in the space didn't interest me at all. Michael was the individual in question. It didn't take long for the CEO, who had seemed out of reach and distant just a few hours earlier, to stand in front of me with a look of frailty and something far more human than I had expected. Because of this, I was given a route I had never taken before, and I was able to help people I never thought I would be able to aid with a single, basic act of kindness, a modest gesture to make someone feel seen. The achievements of a shy intern who wanted to make the world a better place have led to something I could never have predicted. Not just for Robert, but also for Michael, me, and others. Sometimes, the smallest things can change a person's life in the biggest ways. Every nice word, gesture, and act of empathy will eventually make a difference. It can also change people's life. If this story has inspired you in any way, such as making you think about how important it is to be aware of the people around you and do something when needed, please like this video and subscribe to get more inspiring stories. Be sure to click the notification bell so you never miss a story that could change how you see the world. If you can think of a time in your life when someone went out of their way to make you feel like they were really seeing you, please write a comment below. I would be very happy to sit down and hear whatever stories you want to tell me. I'm glad you're here today, and I can't wait to see you again in the next video. He pointed to the chair on the other side of his desk and said, "Please have a seat." I tried to stay where I was and get rid of the nervous fluttering I could feel in my stomach. I couldn't have known what would happen in the future, but I couldn't shake the sensation that this moment and this conversation would change everything. While I was standing in the foyer, I became lost in my thoughts. I couldn't stop thinking about the man I had just been looking at. It looked like there were a lot of things he couldn't get. Someone who just showed up might make others feel respect and regard for him, which made them treat him with dignity. But he wasn't just the CEO in this world, he also held other positions. He was trying to reconnect with a part of himself that he had lost touch with at some point in the past. Michael stayed at his desk in the same position as before, stiff as a board, but his face had changed in a way that was new to him. "Miss Walsh," he said, "I owe you an apology. I've been so focused on my work that I've neglected the most important thing of all, family." I couldn't believe it. Apologizing? Can you tell me if the person in question is the president and CEO? I thought Michael Hartwell would show me a lot of other things. Some of these traits were patience, leadership, and authority. I didn't expect to get an apology, though. He kept talking with a lot of excitement, and his voice never wavered. "You did something for me today that I haven't been able to do for myself in years. You brought me back to what really matters." The things he said made a bigger impact on me than I thought they would. I've never thought that taking an hour off from the chores I was given may have anything to do with this problem happening while I've been working for Meridian. I was sitting opposite from a man who had seen his father be treated like a bother at work. At that very moment, he realized that, for the first time in his life, he had entirely ignored the things that really mattered to him, which were the people he loved. I had no idea what to say. When I didn't understand what had just been said to me, the only thing I could think of to say was, "I don't know what to say." I had no choice but to answer in the way that I thought was right. He shook his head very slowly and said, "I understand. And that's why I need to talk to you about your future here." My heart started to race because I was so overwhelmed with emotion. This is what happened. I can't think of any other possibilities besides the possibility of being fired. I had not followed the rules before. I hadn't been at my assigned job for hours. I had gone to see the father of a big client, which was not allowed, for heaven's sake. I opened my mouth because I was ready to say sorry and take any penalty that was given to me. Michael raised his hand to show that the proceedings should end right away. He said, "Just listen to me before you say anything," in a calm but firm voice. I've seen a lot of interns come and go. Most of them are focused on their careers, ticking the boxes, and getting the work done. But you've shown me something different. Something real. Something I've been missing for years. I was confused and shocked. What was the message he was trying to send to the people who were there mean? I had just signed with Robert to make it look like I was paying attention to him and to make it easier for us to talk to each other. There was nothing unusual about anything I had done. Michael, on the other hand, didn't give up. He never looked away from me. Sometimes the most important thing we can do is stop thinking about what we think is important and just listen. Listen to the people around us and give them the attention they deserve. In a world where everything is about getting things done and getting results, we forget that people are the ones who make those results happen. Without people, all the numbers, the clients, the awards, none of it matters. What I was listening to turned out to be something I couldn't believe at all. The Michael Hartwell I thought I would see was not the Michael Hartwell I actually saw. This individual did not have the power that the powerful CEO of Meridian Communications had, which was complete control over the company. He was thinking about his life and came to the conclusion that something fundamental was missing. When Michael said, "You have accomplished something that no one else in this place has accomplished," his voice was a little quieter than it had been before. "You made my father feel seen. You didn't treat him like an inconvenience. And that's something I've failed to do for years. I should have done better." He stopped talking for a moment so that everyone in the room could understand how important what he had just said was. At that moment, I felt like I was being oppressed, like if Michael was taking in something that I couldn't understand. "I know this may come as a surprise to hear from me," he said while looking straight at me, "but I would like you to help me make a change in this area. I want you to help me change how this company treats its workers." My heart started to race. I asked, "What do you mean by that?" Michael stood up a little and said, "I am currently in the process of creating a new position for myself. Director of Accessibility and Inclusion." I blinked in an effort to figure out what the words I had just read meant. I said in a slow voice, "Director of," to point out that I was saying the same thing again. He nodded his head and said, "Yes. You would be in charge of making sure that Meridian is truly inclusive, not just in terms of how we hire people, but also in how we treat everyone who comes through these doors. Employees, clients, and even visitors. I want you to help make this company a place where no one is ignored. Where people's voices are heard. Where inclusion is more than a buzzword." I stayed in my seat because I couldn't believe what had just happened. I finally managed to say to myself in my thoughts, "But I'm just an intern. I don't have the experience for something like that. I'm still working on my degree. I don't know the first thing about running programs for inclusion or accessibility." Michael leaned in a little and said, "You have something more valuable than experience. You have empathy. You've shown me that you care about people and that you're not afraid to step up when it matters, to see the human side of things, even when the rules say not to. That's exactly the kind of person I need." I said, "But I don't have a degree yet. I don't even have any experience in human resources or management." Michael spoke in a determined tone, "I don't care about your degree. You have something much more important than a degree, the ability to listen, understand, and make real change. You've already shown that. You've shown more leadership in the last few hours than most people in this company have shown in years." I didn't say anything since I didn't know what to say. This can't be happening, there's no way it could be. This was not something that really happened in the real world. It felt like a dream. I stood there in a fog, not knowing how to say what I was feeling. My brain was completely out of control. Michael said, "At this moment, you don't have to say anything. Think about it. Take the weekend. But I want you to know that the position comes with a substantial salary, full benefits, and the authority to make real decisions. You'd report directly to me. And you'd have the power to shape how this company operates in terms of inclusion and accessibility. I didn't know what was going on. For a long time, I had been looking for a chance to make a big change in my life. This was the moment. But it also appeared like there was a lot going on all at once. At that time, my apprenticeship was still going on. Given how big this problem is, I can't believe I could be held responsible for anything I might have done. I shook my head in disbelief and wonder and said, "This goes beyond anything I could have ever imagined. I didn't do anything special. I just made your dad feel at home." Michael's smile was kind and not too big. Sometimes, the little things are the most important. What you did for Robert today was exactly what this company needs, a change of perspective. A reminder that, in the end, it's not about what we do, but how we treat the people around us. I nodded my head while I kept trying to figure out what had happened. When I first started this internship, I thought my job was just a minor, unimportant part of a much bigger puzzle. I also thought that I could become a bigger person or thing than I had been in the past. It all started with a simple hello to a man who had been utterly left out of the situation, and that hello meant a lot.